live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime, even if I'm coming to you with COVID, and even if I'm coming to you from my little corner home studio as opposed to global headquarters where it's nice and quiet. So that's where we're at today. And I've reached the stage, and I'm going to bring her in for this. I've reached the stage of COVID and illness where the COE has publicly shamed me in front of my family and told me that I'm having a full-on mental meltdown, not a nervous breakdown. She took herself off. Why'd you take yourself off? So we've reached that point. But we're trying to get through it. And COE, you did a great job today. Any comments on your show today, COE?
COE is muted.
She can unmute herself. She's ignoring
I have no comment.
Oh. That's still a comment. So the COE did a show earlier today, an impromptu show, and that is because Katie Magbanawa of Charlie Adelson fame of that trial, she is now looking for some love, and Gigi pointed that out. She's in prison for the rest of her life, but looking. Is that for a pen pal, Gigi McKelvey? That Katie, yeah.
There's a ton of websites out there where you can be pen pals. This one though was you have to pay to be on it.
Is it more than a pen pal, or is this like a prison visit kind of situation?
No, it's just pen paling, but you have to pay to be on that one. And then you can be paid to, what was it? Jail Lady Lovebirds. I don't know. It was what was it? I got it still pulled up here, but yeah. So the minimum she pays to have this profile for a year is $40. That's for just a standard membership. $70 to be featured for 12 months, and then $100 for 12 months with a featured listing on both meetanimate.com and jailbabes.com. So clearly looking for love.
Very interesting. Michelle Abbott says, she says the COE is underrated. She's Joel's backbone. I want to get, and the COE, I think, should have a show. And if you guys, this is my impromptu poll. She said, look, I was just hanging with Gigi. So I was like, what about the hang with the COE? Something along like the best hang in true crime. If you guys have any suggestions on titles for future COE type shows, let us know. You can either put them in the chat or you can email them to us at survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. But I agree with Michelle Abbott. Apologies to my family. They are annoyed with me, but I'm going to try to take 19 steps outside after this to clear the head. Without further ado, we all know what happened now with Becky Hill. There was this impromptu hearing regarding Alex Murdaugh. Becky Hill was there, obviously. And Alex Murdaugh was trying to get a new murder trial in light of the fact that there were allegations brought against Becky Hill that she was jury tampering and tampering with witnesses. And that all took place Friday and yesterday. And our three guests were all there. How unusual is that? They were there for the proceedings, and we're going to hear from all of them. But ultimately, Judge Toal denied this request by the defense, so there will not be a new murder trial. However, it appears it will go to an even higher court, to an appellate court. Leading us off today, a true South Carolina legend, Jack Swerling, with a great name, who's actually from, is it Brooklyn or the Bronx, Jack?
I was born in the Bronx and stayed there till I was 12 and then moved to Jersey. So my dad wanted to move up in the world, so we moved to Newark.
And this is why I love Jack, because my own dad was born in the Bronx and moved to Jersey. This is why I feel an affinity to Jack Swirling. So Jack is still an active Columbia, South Carolina criminal attorney, a litigator, a writer, a lecturer, and he has been doing it since 1973. He's been a South Carolina super lawyer, and he was a partner. He was a partner in the law firm. Listen to the names here. Swirling is the first one, and then it goes Harpootlian, and then we call it after that. So ahead of Dick Harpootlian. So obviously he has known Dick a long time. Next up, of course, coming to us from Augusta, Georgia, is Neil Gordon. He is the publisher of Augusta Business Daily, and he is the co-author of Behind the Doors of Justice with the very controversial Clerk of Court, Becky Hill, and we're going to talk to him all about that in a moment. And he's also now hosting something called Trail Watchers. I'm going to have Neil explain what that is in just a moment. And then, of course, last but not least, we've got Gigi McKelvey. Everyone knows Gigi. She is a rock star behind the microphone, host of the popular true crime podcast, Pretty Lies and Alibis. She covered Murdaugh, gavel to gavel, knows all about it. She's covered Lori Vallow Daybell from before that was even an inkling of a story. And she knows these cases inside out. And now she's on Dan Markel murder and the Charlie Adelson. Without any further ado, Jack Swirling, what was it like for you? You've been practicing since 73. I don't think there's any question, unless you tell me otherwise, that the Alex Murdaugh case has been the seminal case of that entire time period. I don't know. Has there been a bigger case, Jack?
I don't think there's been a bigger case. I think we've had a couple of very sensational homicide cases, but this one pretty much has captured not only South Carolina attention, but throughout the country and overseas as well. So I'd have to say this is probably at the top of the list.
What was interesting to me, I watched as much as I could, but the minute I flipped it on, I saw Judge Toal basically not dressing down, but taking absolutely she had zero tolerance, I would say, for Dick Harpootlian, and basically told him to sit down. She was done talking to him at one point. She did it in a very nice way. So 2 questions. Did that surprise you? And secondly, tell me a little bit about Judge Toal. She's been around a while.
Well, she has. She's an extremely bright individual. In fact, I've known her since 1970 when I was a freshman in law school. And her husband was my contracts professor. So I go all the way back to 1970 with her. It's interesting that she and her husband were graduated, I think, in 1968 from the law school. And they were number 1 and 2 in the class. So you're talking about some extremely bright people. Justice Toal was a trial lawyer. She served in the legislature. In fact, I had the privilege of trying a couple of cases with her as co-counsel. We represented co-defendants together. And then she went on to the Supreme Court, and I had the opportunity to appear in front of her a number of times. And so you could tell from her questioning yesterday that she will really pepper someone with some pretty serious questions, and you have to really think on your feet very quickly. But she's well prepared, and she's bright, and she controls her courtroom. She, as you could see during the hearing yesterday and in the pretrial hearing, she knows how to control a courtroom and keep everybody in line.
Gigi McKelvey, you never miss the action. I always seem to miss the action, but and that's why I yelled at my kids. I said, look, as soon as this podcast is over, even if your pops can only take 21 steps before he's huffing and puffing like a lifetime cigar smoker, we're going outside for a few minutes. That's why we live in Florida. What was the atmosphere like when you went down there in person, in action? The courtroom was jam-packed. Looked like a courtroom straight out of a movie, by the way. It was huge. But what was the atmosphere in there like?
It was weird. I mean, first of all, it was deja vu because literally a year ago to the day, we're in court for the trial and never could have predicted a year later we would be back to see if there was going to be a new trial. But, there was a lot of apprehension, just not knowing what the jurors were going to say once they got on the stand. And of course, the big part was we knew Becky Hill was going to be on the stand, and we knew that Mr. Harpootlian would be able to cross-examine her. So we kind of were anticipating some fireworks there. So it was just really surreal in a way. I said it was like a high school reunion because all of us media that were there, you spend 6 weeks covering a trial with people. You get to know everybody. You become friends. You see each other out on the circuit at different trials. But it was just kind of weird in every sense of the word. But a lot of anticipation, just not knowing what was going to be testified to by the jurors or Becky. And it couldn't get started fast enough.
And we're going to get right to Neil in a second, but there's a question here, and please keep them coming in because my train of thought is not working the way it normally does. So keep the questions coming in, and it'll be a good way to get me back on track. But Rosemary Romero here, what surprised you, Gigi, about Alex Murdaugh in the courtroom, and where were you sitting in the courtroom?
I think the thing that surprised me the most is usually he's a little bit more animated with other people, I guess. He smiles, says hello, talks a lot. He was a little more subdued to me yesterday. Of course, we only had a back shot of him. I was actually sitting in the first row of that elevated section. So you had the public at the bottom, and I was sort of more towards Alex's side. But yeah, you can see me because my grandma kept sending screenshots of me throughout the trial. There you are. But yeah, so I just think that the weight of that hearing was very evident with him. He was fidgety with his hands a lot, kept them kind of like that. Yeah, so it was just a little bit more of a subdued, a little bit more deep in thought, I guess, or just anticipating what was going to come.
By the way, welcome to all the alibiers, because I think that Gigi figured out a way to link us up. So if you alibiers are there, welcome. And there's at least 10 of these a show. Gigi rocks with her there you go. I can't do it now. Neil Gordon, you are obviously in a very interesting situation here because there's two people who are the focal point, Alex Murdaugh and Becky Hill, and you wrote a book with one of them, and it wasn't Alex Murdaugh. Did you have to be there yesterday, or did you want to be there? That's question number one.
Oh, I wanted to be there, and really for no other reasons than just because I did not actually go to the trial in Walterboro. So this was my chance to kind of catch up with a lot of media people that I've met just promoting the book, and a chance to see Alex up close and personal. But mostly I just wanted to see Judge Toal command the courtroom. And despite what all has happened with the book, I still care a lot about the Hill family and Becky. And so I wanted to kind of be there for some support, and also just to kind of see how everything went. And just a couple other quick things. I'm a New Yorker too. Upstate,
Love it.
Albany,
Love
Buffalo, Elmira.
Very
and
nice.
Earlier you mentioned, I know we'll get into this later, the true crime brand that we're launching is actually called Trial Watchers, trialwatchers.com. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Something crazy? Did I call it something crazy? No, trial.
But
I called it trail. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that.
On autocorrect,
that's what happened.
They don't like trial, and it inverts it to trail. So it's not you, it's me.
Yeah. So
but anyway,
tell us what happened with trial, or what is Trial Watchers? Tell us about that.
It just has come out of my wife meeting so many wonderful people while she was in Walterboro, and me meeting so many different people along the way, promoting the book, that I've just kind of I feel like I'm one of them, a true crime fan now, which I was not before. Like to watch your podcasts. I listen to True Sunlight and Eric Bland, and the lawyer, and Harvard lawyer Lee and Gigi, and I'm just, I guess, kind of obsessed in a nice way. And so out of that, because I really enjoyed writing a book, as we're working on a book, Trial Watchers, and it's all about the people who go to these trials, watch the podcast, get involved in chat rooms, social media, go to Crime Con, and they're invested and they're passionate in it. And so we're going to tell their stories, and maybe more importantly, why they're so invested in the true crime world. And so my wife is helping me greatly with it, because she was the first trial watcher that I knew of going there, and I partnered with a longtime friend of mine, Mike Pachenik, who used to work with WSB Television. And so we're doing a book, we're producing a docuseries, and maybe a podcast is on the horizon, but I'm going to have to get some pointers from you and Gigi, because we've not done that before. So
that's
what trialwatchers.com is.
Very interesting concept. Watching or talking about the people that watch the trials, not the trials themselves. So there you go. That's
and I was one of them. I was one of them yesterday, and it was just surreal for me. And Gigi and I spoke a little bit, I guess, in between with the breaks, and it was just wild and intense, and I don't know. It was surreal for me and intense, because Becky was on the stand, and you feel for being on a stand and people coming at you for an hour and a half. I'm sure Jack knows, being on the other side, it's probably not very fun.
Yeah.
No.
I totally, Gigi, I was going to go to Jack right now, which I want to do, but I meant to ask this during yesterday's show. Where do we know, Gigi, where Buster has been in all this? He was not in the courtroom yesterday, correct?
No, he isn't. None of the family were there for the 3 recent hearings I went to.
Okay.
It's a little farther away, than Walterboro for them. But I actually know somebody who lives in the same neighborhood as Buster. He's just gone on about his life, just seems to be trying to find some normalcy after the trial of the century here in South Carolina. So, and I wish him well. He's a really sweet man.
And he's staying put in South Carolina, at least for the time being, because some people said, hey, he might have to pick up and take off because it's just too small a state for him.
No, and I think the community that they have found is very embracing to him and his girlfriend. And so, I wish them well. Buster lost everything.
Well, catastrophic for him, no doubt. Jack Swirling, you're sort of the de facto historian. I don't know if you want to comment on that at all. Buster really did lose everything as far as we know. There were accusations hurled at him and still have been, or still are being, about the whole Stephen Smith murder, which that investigation seems to have stalled. But as a de facto historian here, Jack Swirling, how unusual was yesterday? And, it really began Friday, but in earnest yesterday. How unusual is it to have a hearing like that in the state of South Carolina?
Well, it is unusual. It's not something that we deal with all the time, but a motion for a new trial, especially in a case like this, which was so high profile, and the fact that there was such interest still in this case, and will be for, I would imagine, years to come. It even drew me there to go ahead and sit throughout the day and watch everything, because I know all these people. I know all the personalities. I practiced law with Harpootlian. And just to show you how incestuous it is, Joe McCullough, who represented Juror Z, was also a partner of ours.
Yeah.
So we were all in the courtroom yesterday. And, I enjoyed, of course, watching them. We're very close friends. And I think they went after what they believed needed to be explored, as far as whether or not there was interference and whether or not it prejudiced the outcome of the trial. Did it convince, did Becky, the allegations that were made, Becky Hill, did it convince any of the jurors to vote guilty instead of not guilty? So it was very dramatic, even for me, and I've tried dozens and dozens of murder cases. But for me, it was very exciting. I agree with what Gigi said. It was a very intense. And you did not know what was going to happen or what people were going to say until they got on the witness stand and actually were placed under oath and were actually questioned by Judge Toal. We all knew what they were supposed to say in their affidavits, to whatever extent they were affidavits, but you never really know until they get on the witness stand and start testifying. And I think that was evident yesterday, because particularly Juror Z, who had given an affidavit but then testified to something a little bit more different, that she was persuaded by Becky Hill to vote guilty. It was inconsistent with what the affidavit she gave, so it really did not meet the level that Judge Toal would want to go ahead and say it was that the defense had proved prejudice. And even though there were allegations that she had made contact with the jury, but there was no evidence of prejudice as far as the judge was concerned. And that's what she basically ruled on. There was no presumption of prejudice, but I think she hit a few points there yesterday to indicate that she didn't quite believe everything that was being said. And she had some difficulty with that. She was having some trouble with that. But in the end, she decided that based on the burden of proof, that they had not met the burden of proof.
I ask weird questions sometimes, Jack. I'm going to come back to you about the ruling and what you thought of it. Sure. But if you didn't become a lawyer, you spent 50 years doing it. What do you think what else would you have done? You would have probably been great at a lot of different things.
Well, we ruled out being a doctor because I can't take blood. So that's not an option. And, I think my mother would have liked me to be, a Jewish lawyer, but I'm a Jewish doctor, but I turned out to be a Jewish lawyer.
Yeah. Trust me, I know you're only a quasi black sheep. I'm the full black sheep, but you're the half black sheep. But yeah, I could see, Jack. I could see you being chairman and CEO of like General Electric. You didn't want to go down the business route. I could have seen you doing that.
I'm a good lawyer, but a terrible businessman. I will admit that. I'm the first one to admit that. I need people to guide me.
Yeah, it's funny because when I'm not working on true crime stuff in Augusta, we do a daily business publication, and doctors and lawyers, for whatever reason, you're right, they're incredible service providers and such, but they really almost need a practice manager or something or other, because that's not their specialty.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Trust me, I know that very well. I'm pretty good at producing content and very bad, have been my entire life. If you're a journalist, you're not in the money game. Some people are in the money game. So that's not the field that I chose. Good thing I live in Miami, where everyone drives pickup trucks. There's no Ferraris, there's no Lamborghinis, and not a lot of wealth in Miami. So
well, you feel at home with the pickup trucks in South Carolina. That's
yeah,
sure.
I would. Gigi McKelvey, you were there obviously for the real trial. So what was it like to see these jurors back in action? This time, being questioned by the judge, which is unusual, but what was it like to see that and see their reactions?
I think the jurors seemed very resolved in their verdict they gave almost a year ago. I didn't get any sense that anybody was overly nervous. Maybe Juror Z, the very first one that said that, she felt like that Becky Hill's comments influenced her verdict. But even with her, it wasn't just this overwhelming thing. They were a great jury. They were really attentive, even when it got thick in the weeds with the financials. And I was struggling to keep my eyes open at times during that stuff in the trial. It's not that it's not important, but I suck at math. So you're just speaking Greek when you're talking all these numbers. But it was weird to see them back. But yeah, I think that every juror that got on that stand, when to be sitting there with Alex Murdaugh looking at you, knowing that you gave him that verdict that puts him away for life, has to be very intimidating. To get up there and just reaffirm what you decided a year ago is still what you feel. So I think they did great. And, they weren't up there long. It was sort of an in and out thing. If you watched, it was maybe 3 minutes or less per juror. And I think they did a great job. Hopefully this is all over, although we'll see. I'm sure this is going to be appealed. and sent to a higher court for sure.
There's no doubt about that. We'll get to that in a minute. As a matter of fact, I have that question pulled up for Jack next. But Neil, to you, what is your current relationship with Becky Hill? I mean, this is a really odd outlier experience. You guys basically you've got the publishing background, so you agree with her to write this book. It all happens, and then this thing completely blows up in a way that no one expected it to. And now she's the center of this negative media, attention. So what is your current relationship with her?
Well, we waved at each other in the courtroom. Jack and Gigi probably recall her attorneys kind of ushered her out in between the time Judge Toal said she was going to think about the verdict and come back. So she kind of passed right by me and we waved. I hugged her husband's neck earlier because he's just a salt of the earth guy, Tommy Hill, just a steady, solid, I mean, I've never shared this before, but, if we never would have written a book, he would have been okay with that. Just kind of living the normal life, both of them kind of just working for the government and all. So I kind of felt, empathy for him. And of course, I love and care about Becky. She knows that. She knows my wife, Melissa, does, and our daughter, Lindy. We just haven't really had a chance to really sit down and talk because I have a lot of questions. I mean, I don't understand a lot. I learned things yesterday, from her on the stand that I didn't know about. So
give me an example. Give me what did you learn that you didn't know?
Well, apparently, I thought that her relationship with the Barnwell clerk of court was maybe a little stronger in terms of a friendship. Not that the Barnwell clerk of court wouldn't be honest, but I guess I was surprised that she was up there testifying. And I had no idea, this is what Rhonda McElveen said. I had no idea that Becky drove a juror perhaps home with the bailiff. And then when she was asked, was it by the judge that asked her? No, or maybe it was Dick also. And she denied that. So I had no knowledge either way of whether she did or didn't. That just came out of the blue for me. So, a couple of things that
when you heard that though, I mean, I've got to ask, when you heard that, have you had a moment in recent days where you started to kind of second guess your decision to partner with her, that she may not have been completely transparent with you during this process?
Yeah, they say it's so interesting. I was talking about trial watchers and people that are on social media. Well, people are active on social media, and I started to defend her right after the press conference that Dick held on September 5th. And I said, listen, everything that I know about her, she is a woman of grace and hospitality. People love her. She has high integrity from everything that I've seen. And that was all true. But a number of people said, wait a minute, you don't even really know her. You've really only known her 6 months. And they're right. Maybe it does take longer to truly know somebody that, say, you would have known, you've known them for 20 years, perhaps. I don't regret at all the experience. I mean, I've been grinding away on a day-to-day basis, pumping out stories and doing journalism, and I've never had an opportunity to write a book before, never thought that I would. So it was an honor to be asked to do so. It was an honor to work on it with her. Do I regret how I kind of got caught up in all of this, really through no fault of mine? Of course. Do I regret that a chapter was plagiarized? Of course. But I don't regret meeting all the people along the way and just friendships. We went to Greenville and had a wonderful dinner with Gigi after a podcast. I mean, those are just kind of things you just will always remember. It's just really nice. And hopefully, I'll have another opportunity, and it's in progress. And so, and I wish her nothing but the best.
And I'm going to come back to you on some of the things you mentioned to follow up on. Gigi, what about that interview? You interviewed her on Pretty Lies and Alibis. Could you ever anticipate that you'd be finding out that she plagiarized a portion of the book from a BBC reporter, that she'd be the center of all this controversy? Is it something that you ever could have envisioned? Because people describe her in such a different way, like that doesn't have this, that she's just basically a down home country girl, to use a Gigi McKelvey expression, that there wasn't really much in it for her other than sort of her elected position and doing her civic duty. But now it appears there was more involved.
Yeah. And look, I talked to several people yesterday that were at the trial for the entirety last year. None of us take pleasure in seeing the position she's in, but however, it's a position she put herself in. So the person that Becky was to me has always been very kind-hearted. She took care of everybody at the trial. If we needed something, she took care of it. She would ask us, do you need stuff? On the same token, I think Judge Toal was right yesterday that it just got to her, the bigness of this trial and how it, she was seen as the host with the most. And I think that can be intoxicating, to somebody who works in Little Walterboro. It's a great little quaint town. I have some history there in Walterboro, wonderful people, but the eyes of the world were on that place. And she was sort of the forefront in the media, with a lot of things. And unfortunately, it's just a story where somebody let things kind of run away with it. It got to her. And I hate it, but I'm also a fan of the justice system and the other investigations that are going on, letting those play out. And if things are proven, then, it's kind of what we do every day. There's actions and consequences. So it was hard just on a personal level because she's never been anything but kind to me. But on a judicial side and the enormity of the case we're talking about and what went into putting on that case and the fact that all could have been kind of for nothing if a new trial was granted, then you don't feel so sorry for somebody. But yeah, so hopefully we'll get answers to other things soon and really see the scope of this, because what we've heard is being investigated. It's pretty serious allegations. So I'm just curious to see in the future what's going to happen. But, I'm not somebody that's sitting here like celebrating the fact that it was a difficult day for Becky on the stand, but it is what it is. And you kind of put yourself in that situation. So you got to answer for it.
Well said. By the way, everyone's commenting about what a great team Gigi and the COE are. Maybe there is a once a week show brewing for YouTube. You hear that, COE? She said she's down.
Heck yeah.
Who is the COE? I've heard of a CEO.
This is the COE. This is that's my wife. She runs the show. She runs the show. She's behind the scenes, but should be in front of the scenes. And so we're going to get her on. It's just the COE, it's a chaotic world. You have 3 kids under 10. It's a lot of chaos. And so she's like, yeah, I'm going on with Gigi. And I'm a more measured human being. So I'm like, do you have your thumbnail ready? Things of that nature. So we're going to get it all together and organized. But maybe, I don't know, the COE and Gigi, it even rhymes. I love it. Rosemary Romero here to Jack Swirling. How long, Jack, does the appellate process take for Alex Murdaugh? How long is it going to take to get news out of that neck of the woods?
Well, I think it's going to be pretty protracted. I don't think there's any end in sight in the near future. Justice Toal will go ahead and issue a written order. I would imagine that Harpootlian and Griffin will go ahead and appeal that. There's already an appeal filed from the conviction from last year. My question is, I would think that the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals first will go ahead and consolidate those 2 appeals, the motion for a new trial being denied and also the murder conviction. So we have our first step is the Court of Appeals. And that, I think you have to easily expect, especially with the complexity of the trial and the length of the trial, it's going to take 2.5 years to go ahead and get an ultimate resolution there. From there, no matter who actually wins or prevails in the Court of Appeals, the other side has a right to go ahead and petition for certiorari to the South Carolina Supreme Court to review that. So and I would think it's going to be granted because, again, it's a very complex case and a very long trial. So you're talking about possibly there another 2 years at the Supreme Court level. And then I was asked today about where does it go from there? Well, if there's a federal question, a constitutional issue, then if they lose all the way, if the defense loses all the way, then they would probably consider trying to file a writ of habeas corpus in the federal district court. And that's going to add a couple of years on. So you could be talking about between 5 and 6 years before there's an ultimate resolution, a final resolution of the case.
And Jack, after those 5 or 6 years, do you envision potentially a new trial, or do you think that the buck stops with Judge Toal? And also, because Judge Toal presided on the South Carolina Supreme Court, does she carry sort of extra weight in the decision-making process?
Well, I mean, people are going to certainly give her respect for her intellect and her ability. And she sat with the other members of the Supreme Court for several years, overlapping with different ones over the period of time. So they know her. We all know her in the state and all respect her, particularly her ability, legal ability. So I imagine they're going to go ahead and give deference to her. The Chief Justice appointed her, and I can't think of a better appointment to go ahead and hear the motion for a new trial, because they sat together on the Supreme Court, Chief Justice Beatty and Judge Toal. So I would think that there's going to be some given some weight to what she ruled in this case. So you have that. That's the one issue that's going to be brought up on appeal, is whether or not, and I think the big issue is going to be, what is the burden of proof? What did the defense have to show? The defense was arguing that all they had to do was raise the fact that there was contact with the jury by Becky Hill, and there was a presumption of prejudice, which was a case decided in the U.S. Supreme Court, that it's presumed that there's prejudice. And then the burden would shift to the state to say there was no prejudice. But we have a South Carolina case that was written by Justice Kittredge that said the presumption is not always presumed. And that is the standard that Justice Toal relied on, that the defense had to prove prejudice. There was not going to be a presumption. So that's a big issue that's going to be on appeal. What is going to be the standard in this particular case on the motion, the burden of proof on a motion for a new trial? And then, of course, you've got 6 weeks of trial. And there were all sorts of issues raised during that 6 weeks. I can think of one big thing that's going to be is the length of time that was spent and the evidence that was admitted about the financial crimes. That's going to be a big thing as to whether or not all of that needed to come in, all of it, whether it was relevant or not as an other act to prove, one of the elements of the crime. So I see a lot of issues that are going to be presented to the court, and that's why I think it's a very complex case. Justice Toal mentioned yesterday it took her a long time to read through that transcript. The 6-week transcript is, onerous. And I've read through several of them. So I think that there's a lot of issues that are going to be presented. They're going to be briefed and they're going to be argued. And so I think this case is going to be around for quite a while.
Wow. It is the case that either keeps on giving or won't go away. I'm not sure which. Can you tell us, did you speak to your old law partner, Dick Harpootlian? Was he upset with the ruling?
Well, I mean, I think these, experienced trial lawyers anticipate adverse rulings. And I think that they realized when, I believe at the pretrial hearing, which I attended, Justice Toal mentioned the fact that she thought the burden of proof was the standard set out by the South Carolina Supreme Court, and that you had to prove prejudice. So I think that Dick and Jim Griffin, anticipated that the judge would that was going to be the standard she was going to follow. And I don't know that they were really surprised by the outcome. I think there was hope there, though, for a period of time, because the juror that Joe McCullough represented, our other law partner back in the day, she had originally given an affidavit saying that she was pressured by the jury. But yesterday in court, she said that she was influenced by Becky Hill's comments. And had she been more clear about it, and if there was clarity there, because I think that Judge Toal mentioned the fact that she was inconsistent between what she had said in her affidavit and had said in the live testimony. Had she stuck with the fact that she was prejudiced by and influenced by Becky Hill, it might have been a different outcome. So I think that everybody was kind of anticipating what the jurors were going to say, particularly Juror Z. And of course, as you know, everybody should know right now, what Judge Toal did is went ahead and gave a letter instead of a number to each of the jurors, so there'd still be anonymity among the jurors. So it was high drama for a period of time to see what the jurors were going to say.
I actually
they went from numbers to letters. Go ahead, Neil. They went from numbers to letters.
You mentioned about Dick. I caught Dick kind of in between or whatever, and I don't know why I did this, but it was like a tip of my cap. I said, well played. I mean, I think he did as good as he could have with the cards he was dealt. To Jack's point, I mean, it was a difficult standard to try to reach, but he, with his questioning of Becky and then followed up by the judge, I think a lot of people in the courtroom wondered, because she almost flipped the script. Like, she, at the beginning, if you remember in the pre-hearing, said, we're not going to make this a trial about Becky. We're not going to really make a big deal of it. But she allowed everything for Dick to ask anything that he wanted. And then she noticed inconsistencies. And I think there was some real doubt in the courtroom as to how she was going to rule, because I think a few people told me Becky kind of made her mad.
Yeah. Well, Neil,
it wasn't.
Go ahead, Jack.
No, I was going to say I think what Judge Toal, I keep calling her judge, but she was also Chief Justice. So
right.
I'll just refer to judge. But she did have some questions about Becky Hill's credibility. I mean, she even said that in the courtroom. But be that as it may, I think she went back and relied on the standard that she was going to follow. She did let Dick go and ask all the questions that he wanted to. All the state's objections about the questions were overruled, which I think I sat there and listened to that, because I thought, she might sustain some of those objections, which she really let Dick go and question Becky the way he wanted to. It all got out. Everything was out on the table there. So if there's any surprise at all, it was the fact that Dick was not restrained at all about the questions, and all the state's objections were overruled. But Judge Toal wanted to give a fair hearing, and she did.
Neil, do you feel like Becky Hill believes she's a victim in this, or is she, taking the responsibility that she needs to take?
I don't know. A few people that I spoke to said I don't know that she is, because a few people I spoke to said that she should have owned some things where she was asked different things. And I'm trying to remember the situation. I guess what was said in camera with with Judge Newman and the egg juror and Becky, people I talked to said she should have just kind of owned that, but she kept trying to defend herself that she didn't speak with the egg juror. But it appeared as though at one point she said she didn't speak with her, but then at another point she said the egg juror shared with her that her husband had 3 restraining orders, which the justice then said, but so then you did speak with her. So I don't know that she took responsibility. I don't know that she feels like a victim. I don't know. I haven't really gone that deep with her.
And Neil, and I'm going to get back to Gigi in a second. Just speaking of responsibility, do you feel responsible at all because you're the co-author of this book, and now, of course, it's been revealed that a portion of it was in fact plagiarized. I assume that's a part that she had written and told you she had written. Do you feel like you should have done more? I don't know what could have been done. Maybe run it through some sort of chat GPT program, but do you feel responsible that this happened?
Well, I certainly wish I would have questioned her more. I did say, wow, this is really good. When did you have time, kind of thing? She said, well, I took notes throughout the whole 6 weeks and I just hadn't had a chance to really write anything until now. I said, oh, okay. But we had a media attorney review every chapter, including that one. And he had a few questions that had nothing to do with the whole scope of whether she wrote it or not. We had an editor. We had a number of people. So I sure wish we would have caught it. You asked about a regret. The one thing I will say that everyone has agreed upon about this whole situation is perhaps we should have waited to put the book out. And I think there may be some validity to that. If I knew then, what's that expression? If I knew now what I knew then, or vice versa. Maybe it would have been more after yesterday or something to come out.
Yep.
Maybe. Hindsight being 2020. My wife and I are storytellers, and this was a wonderful project for us to tell a story. Melissa did the photos. I was able to do the interviewing and the writing, and I felt like I did that to the best of my ability. The other thing that did catch me, you asked if there was any surprises or what have you. It seemed like Becky was trying to say or acknowledge about poetic or creative license, and it led to the word lying or whatever. I would disagree with that. I mean, our interaction and our interview led to her giving her opinions on what she thought about certain situations. And then I wrote a draft and then she kind of molded it. But I did not feel there was anything at all dishonest. I mean, it was just her, her views behind the doors of justice.
And Gigi, from Dom's mom, in order to get rid of Becky Hill in the clerk of court position, it's an elected position. They'd have to hold an emergency election, ? Or impeach her. What does happen to Becky Hill now, Gigi? Do we know?
That might be a better question for Mr. Sterling.
Oh, Jack, do you know what happens?
Well, I don't know what they will do and what position. I know that there, or I believe, let's put it that way, there's an ethics complaint. So there's an ethics commission in South Carolina, and I think that they are taking that up, or have been. It's been before them for a while. So I guess they would have the power to go ahead and make recommendations. She could be removed by the governor. Or they could hold a special election if she's removed. I don't know that that's going to happen because I don't know where the authorities are going to go, if they're going to go any further with her, other than where we are right now. I mean, I have no idea that it's going to end up in some investigation of her or some charge for her. I don't know. So but there are procedures if someone wants to go further with this. To go ahead, and she could be taken out of office if that's what they decide to do. But I have no reason to believe that they're going to.
I'm going to get to this question in a minute, but Gigi, there's so many tentacles with this Alex Murdaugh story. The one that's most disturbing to me, that's outstanding, I mentioned off the top, is the murder of Stephen Smith. It was declared a murderer. He's a young gay man found on the road. I think it was 2015. His mom, Sandy Smith, has been very vocal about it. Do we know, has there been any movement at all? Has SLED said anything? At one point, there were persons of interest Have you heard anything?
Not a whole lot officially. Fitz News really stays on top of that story. According
Mhm.
to some of the articles I've read there have been two persons of interest, totally unrelated to the Murdaughs. And so we'll see what happens. I'm not sure what's going on, to be honest. The SLED has been silent, which makes me hope that they're working and they're making progress. But ultimately, we just want whoever's responsible for that to be caught. But yeah, it's his mom actually has been at the hearings. Stephen Smith's mom. She was there Friday and she was there yesterday, by the way.
My
And
understanding that is still an active investigation.
Yeah.
still active.
Yes.
And Gigi, what was the response from the gallery to her when people saw her?
People just give her hugs and she's a sweetheart. I mean, she's one of those people you just want to put in your pocket and take home. Very
Mhm.
loving, warm sense about her. But I like the fact that she's there. Let her do her thing. Go learn what she needs to learn. She was there with Luna Shark, which is Mandy Matney's company. So
Yeah.
that was her little press badge, had that on there. But it was just great to see her in there. She's a very warm and loving woman. So in spite of everything she's been through, which is not knowing who killed your son for a very long time.
Yeah, which is horrific. Catherine, I'm not going to pull it up because I want to ask Neil about this other comment that's on the screen. But to you, Gigi, again from Catherine, Becky said the egg lady just talked all the way to the judge and had done the same in the jury room. That's how, according to Becky, she knew about the restraining orders, etc. Is there going to be an end to this egg lady juror drama? What was the beef between her and Becky yesterday? I didn't catch all that. Was there?
I think, excuse me, Joel, I think you just got me sick through the computer screen.
Sorry about
that. So no, I think that it was just a little bit of inconsistency in Becky's testimony about her communication with Egg Lady and how that whole Facebook post came to be. And it's still a big, bizarre question to me, and whether or not it was even legit. The accusation's been made that was made up because there was some inclination that maybe Egg Juror wasn't sure he was guilty. So it's all a mess. It's just you try to clean it all up and look at things from a different angle. But that whole thing for me has been one that is so bizarre with the Facebook post. And then they were going to call the ex, I know that they wanted to call the ex-husband to testify in this matter. And I don't know, Joel, honestly, it sounds like that the, Becky was saying that she never talked to the egg lady or something to that effect. And then it became, but she talked to me on the way to the judge's chambers, telling me that she had 3 restraining orders against her ex-husband or something to that effect. But yeah, that's the hot mess express right there. I don't know.
Yeah. And Jack,
I know Egg Lady was 2 blocks away. And actually, Kathy Russin from Law and Crime sent me a screenshot. As soon as Mr. Harpootlian says, she's 2 blocks away, I start smiling really big because I knew he would have her there in arm's reach. And so she screenshotted that and messaged me. And she's like, the moment he said Egg Lady's just 2 blocks away, I was grinning because I knew he would have her there just in case.
Yeah. How did she get her name? I'll let Gigi tell the story, but it has to do with her being dismissed. Gigi, let everyone know how she got the name.
Well, that was when eggs were really expensive. And one of the jurors had chickens and was bringing eggs for all the jurors. And so Judge Newman dismissed her from the jury and said, what do we need to go get from you from the jury room? And she's like, my purse, and don't forget my eggs or something like that. And Judge Newman was like, your eggs? It's just one of those lighthearted moments in the courtroom where, out of all things, get my eggs, And so she became the egg lady.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, that's how everyone gets a name. Weird set of circumstances. Jack, to you, should a clerk of court ever write a book? I mean, you seem like a purist, and no offense, Jack, an old timer. Were you shocked that? Were you shocked? I hope that didn't offend you. Were you shocked that she wrote a book? I mean, it's kind of crazy, right?
Well, I thought it was interesting that she did write a book. I don't begrudge her for writing a book. She had a firsthand, she had the best seat in the house. She was the clerk of court, and so certainly she had the right to go ahead and put down in a book her perceptions and her experiences. Everything I've always heard about her, as Gigi said, she's very congenial, very warm, very gracious. which you do find when you go to these rural counties. The clerks of court are just, they take care of everybody. When I go try cases in some of the rural counties, they always bring donuts and cake and drinks. So it's a very warm feeling when you go there. And Becky Hill, I had understand had that reputation of being very warm and accommodating to everybody. I think it came out yesterday that she was very accommodating to all the lawyers, all the press. So this is what we find in some of the rural counties where they have a little bit more time and to go ahead and do these things, and they want to make everybody comfortable. And I think that's what she tried to do. And I think everybody did appreciate it. It's unfortunate that she finds herself in this position right now. And she's the focus of the hearing. She was the focus of the hearing yesterday, along with the jurors. So, it's kind of unfortunate for her because she was totally out of place being the focus of this. And she probably never expected that when she went ahead and wrote the book and was the clerk of court during this trial. That she now is the one that really became the focus of the motion for a new trial.
By the way, this is my show, but let me say this. This is an amazing panel. Look at this. We've got Dick Harpootlian's original law partner. You've got Becky Hill's co-author, and you've got the South Carolina rock star herself, Gigi McKelvey, who's covered this case. Where will you find a better panel than this? That is my question. If you have an answer, please put it in the chat and I'll read it. It'll be a wrong answer if you can find a better panel anywhere else. Waston Law almost took all my breath away right there. By the way, I'm progressively sweating under this sweatshirt, but I won't have a wardrobe malfunction during this podcast. I refuse to change. Mr. Swirling, Counselor Jack Swirling, do you think that Becky Hill's letter to the ethics board was too vague or misleading? I don't even know if you read it. More research into getting approval for the book, perhaps? Maybe all this would have been avoided. Should she have done more due diligence? You're an attorney, you know about that.
Well, I'm not familiar with the letter that she wrote to the ethics board. In fact, it would be, if I saw it now, it'd be the first time I ever saw it. So I really don't know what she said in her response to the ethics commission. I really don't know.
I could jump in.
Please do, Neil.
We actually had Jay Bender, who took care of the media yesterday and throughout the trial, review Becky's letter to the ethics commission, reviewed what the ethics commission wrote back, reviewed the statute. And there was one clause in there that and it's, maybe it'll get changed or whatever, but it basically says if a clerk of court is not doing duties, moonlighting and doing the same duties that she does during the day in her regular job, she's allowed to. So in other words, if she wanted to be the clerk of court weekends in Barnwell County, she couldn't, because that's her duties. But writing a book is not her duties. It's an odd clause, but we checked it out and Jay Bender gave us a blessing. We started writing and actually stopped for 10 days until we got back from the response from the ethics commission.
Jerry Michael with actually a good question. This one's for the G rock star, G Money. Was everyone surprised that the Judge Toal, Supreme Court Justice Toal, put aside 3 days for this hearing, but finished the hearing? Well, she sort of started on Friday, but in one day, Poot kept saying, "What's the hurry?" Gigi, I was a little thrown off because, I'd heard in the media them saying 3 days, something had to start Friday because of a conflict, and then boom, it was over. Were you surprised?
Not after Friday, because it was so fast. When she questioned that juror, there's no cross exam. So it's just boom, 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 you're done. And I guess, it's probably better to have more time on the docket than to not set aside enough days. And then, nobody, the media, the people participating aren't planning for being there as long. So it's no harm, no foul. Everybody went home yesterday for good. But, if she only set it for one day and we didn't get done, then I mean, what would you do? So I wasn't surprised that they put aside a few days. It was a 6-week trial, biggest trial this state's seen in a lot of ways. I mean, we had Susan Smith, Pee Wee Gaskins. There's been major, cases here in South Carolina, but no, I think 3 days was kind of playing it safe with the enormity of the trial.
Shout out to my friend Collier Landry, who hosts the Collier Landry Show on the YouTube, and he also has the Survivor Squad with Tara Newell. Check it out. Go ahead.
What was Mr. Sterling going to say? He was going to say something about the days.
Gigi mentioned something about Pee Wee Gaskins. Just a little background. That was he was the largest mass murderer in the history of South Carolina. So his case was right up there as far as the notoriety of this case. And interestingly enough, the prosecutor in that case was Dick Harpootlian. The defense lawyer was Jack Swirling.
Wow.
And it lasted 6 weeks as well.
Wow.
Jack, when was that case?
1985.
85. And how many people was he convicted of murdering?
It's 12 or 13. It was somewhere in that neighborhood. And he was he was serving a life sentence in the South Carolina Department of Corrections based on the Furman versus Georgia case, which said the death penalty as administered at that time was unconstitutional. But while he was in prison, he allegedly, and I guess he was convicted, went ahead and carried out a murder for hire of another individual on death row. And that's the case that he was eventually sentenced to death for. But the background, Harpootlian and I tried that case against each other. I thought you'd be interested in something like that.
Wow.
And I think the old Buster gave a press conference when he was convicted and sentenced to death. So you got like this trifecta there.
Yeah, everybody's tied together.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. It's the South. Come on, we're all cousins.
So's Joe McCullough.
Gigi said that, not me. Neil, go ahead.
You sat next to Joe McCullough. Is that right? Yesterday, Jack?
Oh yeah. We sat next to each other.
Were you near him? My wife, who worked 17 years in the medical field, said she didn't think he looked good. And I know that he had a heart attack, and I know that he wanted to be there. Did you get a sense of how he was feeling, and did it create more stress yesterday?
Well, I think it was stressful for him. I mean, it was last Monday when he had the heart attack, and fortunately, he was taken to the hospital right away. Everything worked out, and he wanted to go to the hearing yesterday. He didn't get out of the hospital till I guess last Wednesday or Thursday, which was pretty quick. But I think he's tired, and I was concerned about him. And even if you remember, Justice Toal said you need to go home. And rest. We're all worried about him. He's like my brother, and as is Harpootlian. So, but he's doing. I spoke with him not too long ago, and he's doing well.
Yeah, he just didn't look like Joe, but who would after a heart attack? But Joe is such a kind man. He's so funny. Yeah, I thought a few times during trial he'd get me kicked out of there for making me laugh, because he would write things on his notepad and then stick it up for us to read, and it would never be anything serious. It was something funny.
That's right.
Yeah, you could tell he felt bad yesterday, but good to see him because I was so worried.
It was the law firm of Mo, Larry, and Curly, Sterling, Harpootlian, and McCullough.
And Joe was on a panel with you most every day, if I remember, on Law and Crime. Is that right? Yeah,
I sat right behind Joe the whole 6 weeks, and he frequently came on the lunch break with me. In fact, I was just going through my pictures, and he brought his puppy dog one day and threw it in my lap. It's this cute little white poodle dog. And he was so cute. He was like, that's my baby. Yeah, Joe's
By the
great.
way, Jack's going to be immodest here, but I can tell you right now, out of those three guys, and I only know one of them, Jack is the brains of the operation. Guaranteed. Guarantee you that. Mr. Harpootlian, Lee Dundee, says Mr. Harpootlian was both belligerent and theatrical yesterday, Jack Swirling. Is he always like this, or was it for the cameras being on the world stage? Jack, Dick wasn't laughing too much when my mother, with her thick Hungarian accent, went up to him at CrimeCon and butchered his name, and also and mistook him at one point for Creighton Waters, which was hilarious.
Oh, that's classic.
So that was fun. But is he always like this?
Well, he's got a sharp wit. I've known him since 1967. We went to undergraduate school together at Clemson. And we've known each other almost 60 years. He's got a sharp wit, he's got a sharp tongue, but he's a hell of a trial lawyer. And so you bring that all together in the courtroom and you're going to have some exciting moments. So there's nothing unexpected from Dick Harpootlian. For me anyway. And we've known each other so long that he can look at me and I know what he's thinking. He doesn't have to verbalize it, but he really is he's an excellent trial lawyer. And but he does have he has that edge. I mean, he has a sharp wit and he can, he can dig in to somebody pretty well, and he does. And so I think that's what people see. But don't ever mistake it for not being on the ball and sharp and prepared. He is very well sharp and prepared and a very effective lawyer.
And he's very kind. I know by default people don't like Harpootlian because of who he represents, but he is a funny and very kind person when he's not doing his job. And
he's also a politician, so I think that's another reason people don't love the guy. But they only know the public persona, right?
Well, he's got his everybody, all of us do. I mean, I do the same kind of work he does. So we have people who are detractors and don't like us for what we do. But then it's amazing how many people really appreciate what we do and come up to us at cocktail parties and want to know more about what we do. So he's highly regarded in this area as well. But you're right; he can be very kind, and he is.
Jack, speaking of cocktail parties, Philadelphia shoulder surgeon I'm not pulling it up for a reason, but wants to know if you will come on. We do a taped show called "Surviving My Biggest Case." You can talk about your serial killer, but I'd love to get you on where it's just me and you recorded long form, and you tell us stories. How about that one day?
I would love to do that. I do have a few stories.
I would love to hear that, to be honest, because Kevin Gaskins was the boogeyman of South Carolina when I was growing up.
Yeah. And maybe
and then Judge Toal, I learned about her in middle school. I was raised by hippie parents who were very feminist. So that was a big deal when she was elected. So she was a big deal in my house. And I remember we had a whole week of learning about Justice Toal, very historic woman for South Carolina.
Oh, she is. She's first female justice on the Supreme Court, but she also, a lot of people don't realize this, but she was trying cases in front of all male juries before we had females on juries.
Wow.
So,
yep.
She just commanded the room. It was I've never experienced anything like that. She just had command of the room.
That's when by the way, that the female race is superior to the male race. The minute I saw Judge Toal speak to Dick Harpootlian, I was like, she's proving my case. And this is why I let women run the world. My mother and my wife.
I agree with you. The women are the stronger species. I do agree.
She smacked him around like a redheaded stepchild a little bit yesterday, though. She did. She gave him a little beating a few times. She was like, don't care. Overruled. Let's go. And then she's very old South with that accent. Juror. Love
she knows he can take it. That's the whole thing. She knows
that's exactly right. Yeah. It's not the first time they've crossed paths.
Right.
I loved it. The reason I brought up this comment from Sharon Curlin, this is a look into COVID. When I read this, it says Becky Hill reminds me of a gossiper, but I still am seeing grasshopper because my mind is not working. So I'm seeing Becky Hill reminds me of a grasshopper, and that is why I brought that up. Neil Gordon, onto a serious note for one moment here. So it was revealed, I think in court, if I'm correct, that Becky Hill earned around $100,000. That's a lot for a book. I assume you guys are sharing the proceeds in some manner of speaking. And so is that figure accurate? And is the book still, it's no longer available from what I understand.
No, once I heard about the plagiarism on Friday morning, the 22nd, I immediately called Tommy and Becky, and we decided to ask Amazon to cease selling it. What we didn't know is that they had overprinted some copies, and they had it in warehouses in the United States and Canada. So about another 1,000 copies was sold from just before Christmas to around January 18th, and then they've run out. So yes, that's accurate. And by the way, they receive about 2/3 and the Gordons received about 1/3. So the figure,
How many? I'm sorry, I missed you. How many copies did you say in total sold?
in total, about 15,000 sold in about 5 months, and 1,000 sold post plagiarism. And today I learned they're being sold on eBay by people who bought some of the 1,000.
But they are it was independently or self-published, I should say, correct?
Self-published, and we pulled it. So yeah, we received about a third of it, but some of that money is coming, and we've chosen to donate the money post plagiarism to charities. We're going to split it between there's a Gloria Satterfield
Yes.
in her honor charity, and in honor of Stephen Smith. So we're going to share equally with those two charities. It just seems the right thing to do, and you know, it, based on this case, you feel for those families.
Well, it's good to know that in light of the plagiarism and in light of all the tragedy there in South Carolina in the wake of Alex Murdaugh, that you're doing something good with some of those proceeds. We have invited, someone's asking here if we've invited Becky Hill to appear on STS. We have through Neil Gordon, and she wasn't able to do it. And now I think she's definitely not able to do it. So you're going to have to go to Gigi McKelvey for that interview, because she's got the magic touch. She had her on. I don't know how soon she's getting her back on, but she had her on. Lindsay Shea here, friend of the show. I think Eric Bland, and this is Joe McCullough, but at one point yesterday, Gigi, Dick Harpootlian suggested that Eric Bland be moved to further back in the gallery. What's going on these days? I'm trying to get Eric back on. He's a friend of the show. He comes on quite frequently, but what is this bad blood? And there's a couple of questions. Why is Poot so nasty about Eric Bland? Can you fill us in?
I cannot, because I'll tell you one thing I don't do, Joel, is I don't know if anybody's drama. I stay out of it. I'm too busy. Your beef is your beef. I'm friends with you. I'm friends with you. Y'all got beef, not my beef. But no, I mean, Eric Bland stood up, got very red all of a sudden, and said he objected. And then I just couldn't focus. I was like, what's going on? Because I thought Bland was going to like one arm over the seat and we were going to have a ding ding fight in the courtroom. I mean, it was serious. Bland was hot to trot, but I couldn't hear what came after that when he said he objected. But he did move down, but then I think at some point he was back over. Eric Bland's a very nice man. He's a nice guy.
Eric comes on the show and he's a good guy. Jack, do you want to just, I don't know if you want to add anything, because I know you know Dick. And
Eric too, very well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known Eric a long time.
Look, they're both successful guys, and arguably powerful guys in that state. So it's what's your take?
Well, there's been something going that's been festering for a few years now. At one time, they were very good friends, and their offices were actually in the two buildings next to each other. But something I think that there's been some resentment about what one person's saying about the other, and some thinking one person's thinking the other person's saying inappropriate things, and so this thing has festered over the last couple of years, and it's a shame. I mean, I hate that because I know both of them very well.
And so, just to piggyback on that, Eric actually blurted out a cuss word under his breath that we heard in the gallery. But again, Judge Toal had command of the room. She asked both of them to sit down, and that was that.
Well, I hope that cuss word was directed at Poot and not at Judge Toal.
Yes.
Nah, Judge Toal would have handled that. I'm gonna tell you right now. Should have bent him over her leg.
Yeah, you would have heard that if.
I know enough South Carolina to say this. It would have been a bless his heart moment if he was cursing at Judge Toal.
And all you South Carolina people will know. Go pick your switch. What that means, right? That would have been one of those moments. Go pick your switch off the tree that you're eventually going to get your booty whipped with.
There you go. I never heard that one in all my life. But
really,
don't get the small ones. Don't get the small ones. No.
Jack,
since I've been in South Carolina, I've learned that word. to get the switch, and also bless your heart.
Bless your heart can be used
very
in so
familiar
many
with
different
those
ways. I
things.
didn't get really spanked as a kid, but no, I can bless your heart in a good way or a bad way.
In the Bronx, they say, "I'm going to beat your ass." That's how they. It's a much more direct manner of speaking.
But when we were
Well, in
growing
the
up,
South,
when
in
your
the
dad
South
was
is
growing
bless
up
your
here, and I
heart for
was
this ass whipping
well,
you're
I'm
about
sorry, I
to
didn't mean
get.
to talk. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
No,
Jack,
no,
you
no,
go.
no. I
Jack,
didn't see.
go.
I was frozen.
No, I was
My
saying
bad. Go ahead.
when your dad grew up in the Bronx and when I grew up in the Bronx, we didn't know from guns. That was a different thing.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the difference between the North and the South. When I came down here in the early 60s, finding out that you could get a pistol just with your driver's license, that was a little bit different than I was used to in my growing up period.
Yeah. My beautiful dad never really was one to curse, even though he was from New York. However, his now English speaking wife of 60 something plus years, she loves expletives. She learned them all when she came to America. And they are words that she uses often. Did Dick Harpootlian here, Jack Swirling, we'll start to wrap up in a little bit. Did he regret bringing in Juror Z's affidavit, do you think? It was like he scored on his own goal. He had won the argument before that.
Well, I think that they went ahead and got the affidavit. I think it was sometime back in August, and I think that based upon they didn't know what her testimony was going to be. I think that they assumed that it was going to be sticking to the affidavit, and then when she came forward and said that she also was persuaded by Becky Hill's comments and conduct, I think that they wanted to go ahead and make sure that there was at least some corroboration of what she had testified to, but it was only part of it. I mean, because the only thing in the affidavit was that she went ahead and outlined all the things that she said Becky did and said, but she said that she was actually persuaded by the pressure of the jury. So I think that was just a tactical move to go ahead and make sure that part of her testimony was at least corroborated. And that's what I think was going on at that time.
What did you think about the comment where the same juror said that the jurors had discussed the case before deliberations? I thought that was kind of a big deal, but it really wasn't something that was, latched on.
Well, you're right. And that is surprising. I mean, I wonder what everybody was thinking about the state and, the defense at that point, because you're not supposed to deliberate before you get the instructions by the court and all the evidence is. But it seemed that nobody really concentrated on that issue, Gigi.
Yeah.
Right.
It stood out to me a bit, though. Yeah.
Good bit.
Madison Cox, I pre-ordered your book, Joel. I'm bringing this up now because Madison brought it up, but Jack Swirling, I think you would get a kick out of this, Jack Swirling. I have a book out now. It's Conversations with My Holocaust Survivor Mother about life and death. It's her story, but it's also about her losing my father and her husband of 63 years. And it's about life, and it's about being positive and overcoming all the hardship that everyone goes through. But there's a dysfunctional side of the book, and it's got a ton of humor, because my mom has always gone through life with a ton of humor. And I would love to get you maybe I'll have you fork out the pre-order, and then I'll get you a copy that's signed once it's out there. But it's available on Amazon. And look at this, Jack Swirling. This Sunday, 5 p.m. on STS, we've got Mitch Albom coming on. He inspired me. We both went to Brandeis. Yeah, we both went to Brandeis University.
Oh, wow.
He was a journalist. I was a journalist. He sold 40 million copies of his books. I've sold about 4 so far. And
Tuesdays,
5.
Tuesdays
I'll
with
take one.
Rory.
I'll take one.
Thank you, Jack. But yeah, Mitch Albom is coming on, and his new book, by the way, is about the Holocaust, which is why one of the reasons. And he was kind enough, after I literally stalked him, to write a blurb for the book. And I just got what they call the wrap of the book, which is the back cover with his blurb on there. And so he is coming on the show, and it's going to be the worst crime ever committed against humanity, or at least one of the worst, the Holocaust. We're going to talk about his book, and we're just going to get into writing and how he says he accidentally became one of America's most, beloved writers. And so huge get for us on STS. And I hope everyone will join us this Sunday. And I am trying to now take that off, and I can't seem to move.
I'd love to have a copy. That we have a common background, so I think it would be very interesting for me to read.
I think Jack will get a kick out of the book. Jack, everyone keeps asking, how is Alex Murdaugh? How in the world is he paying Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin, who charge a lot of money? Do you have any idea?
It's the best kept secret in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And you know the answer to that secret, but you're keeping it a secret, I think.
Well, I don't know all the details, but I can tell you that they're not working for nothing. I don't know where it's coming from, but I know the fees that they both charge, and they've invested a good part of their life in the last couple of years to this case. So I probably would be revealing something I probably shouldn't be revealing, but I'm just saying that they're not working for nothing. I could tell everybody that.
COVID brain does weird things to you, because right now I literally have an image of both Jim and Dick in their undershirts, sweating profusely, digging underneath Alex Murdaugh's Moselle property for all that money, and that's how they're paying themselves. But I really hope
is a visual I will never forget.
Yes, which is exactly why I presented it. But I hope that that is not the case.
No.
Neil Gordon, I guess my question to you, and then we'll start to close out. I know you're going to be working on more projects because you're a publisher and a writer. Do you have to be more careful in your next venture, just moving forward? Was this a learning lesson for you?
It is a learning lesson, and I chose for the next book, Trial Watchers, to make it kind of an anthology, meaning I'm going to write several chapters, but I've recruited others, a media psychologist to write one, someone who's administrator of one of these Facebook groups, someone who has followed Life Imitating Art, the movies related to true crime, is going to write. So we're getting different voices in it, so it'll be a little bit different. And yes, we're going to try to put everything through AI software. But if you go to trialwatchers.com, you can have a preview of the book, and then we have an extended trailer, a sizzle reel, about 10 minutes on some interesting trial watchers. And just real briefly, it's kind of a sad story, and I don't even know if Gigi or if Jack, if you remember seeing, there's a couple sisters that were there half of the trial, and they're back in Walterboro, and they were there yesterday. And we learned not only do they like to take road trips together and have a lot of fun, but when they were 21 years old, their father was murdered back in Atlanta, and the person responsible, who they believe did it, was never convicted. And so they go to these trials to seek the justice that they never got. And there's so many of those stories, you just think people come to the courtroom because it's interesting, and it is. But some people are, come because they were empathetic towards Buster Murdaugh, or because they want to put the puzzle together, because they're kind of like, maybe they studied it in school and they never became a lawyer, but they're interested in it. So that's kind of the concept.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. It is.
Yeah, it really is. But I think the one thing to remember is a lot of times these cases, like Adelson or Murdaugh, take a life of their own. Like at the end of the day, there are victims that lost their lives in such a brutal way, and it's easy to get caught up in the theatrics of all this mess. But I think as a true crime community, just what he was talking about, these people just, some people never get justice. But the victims need to be first. And that's why I hate to see so much infighting in the true crime community, because it's so counterproductive to what we should be focusing on, which are these victims and their families. So I was just thinking about Paul and Maggie sitting here and thinking, man, it's been a while since we've heard their names mentioned with this case, and this case is about their lives. So, man, it's just crazy how things take on a whole new life.
No matter what
with you.
happened, it's tragic. No matter what happened.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good point because we always talk about it and always become. By the way, there's no better case study, and I think Jack will agree that truth is in fact stranger than fiction than when you look at the Alex Murdaugh trial. But it is true. At the end of the day, this wife and son were murdered, and we get caught up in all the kind of the minutia and all the other ancillary details, and it really is and really should be about the victims. I get lost in that. I know a lot of other people get lost in that, and look at this. Just as I was saying something nice and calming myself down, Joel does not show much appreciation for that. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank my gorgeous, beautiful, but much more importantly, intelligent. By the way, I say this, you can ask my dear mother. The first adjective I always use with my wife is incredibly smart. She has got an Einstein level IQ, as does her brother, who is Space Coast. Off the charts intelligence, literally off the charts intelligence. I'm talking, if properly applied, as it was by some of the siblings, they would have all been at the top of the top Ivy League schools. Top of the charts intelligence, but without my wife, I would literally be nowhere, even though she told me that I am losing my mind, to take a deep breath, and you're out of your mind. That's what she said to me prior to the show, but I don't mind bringing up some, look at Gigi. She's like, what the hell is going on here? By the way, I read an article just to wrap things up, and then we'll get very, very quick closing thoughts. There's an article in the State, South Carolina paper, about Becky Hill and her rise up. And the headline was "Corrupt or Naive? Small town darling Becky Hill is a surprising centerpiece of the Murdaugh retrial efforts." The question they raised was, she corrupt or naive? In high school, her name was Becky Ayers, Heirs. She was a Walterboro High School, the same town. She was a Miss 1985 Miss Walterboro winner as a 17-year-old Walterboro High School student. 2 years after high school, not the way we do it in New Jersey, but the way they did it in South Carolina in the mid 80s. 2 years later, she was married to her high school sweetheart. And then 2020, she wins this clerk of court election, and she's a cancer survivor. She had colorectal cancer. She was a National Honor Society member at one point in high school. Her middle school teacher ranted and raved about her. So it goes without saying, she accomplished a lot and had a lot of accolades. Neil Gordon, of course, her co-author. Neil, do you think, to close out with this question, do you think she is corrupt or naive, or is there something else going on? And your final thoughts, and please tell us about the name of your project one last time.
Oh, that's kind of you. The choice of the two, definitely naive. Small town, hospitality, grace. She's very talkative and likes to make people feel comfortable, maybe overshares some.
Yeah.
And
Space Coast, that's hilarious, by the way. Keep going, Neil.
Oh, that's okay. I participated in that article. Morgan was the writer, and I thought it was, well, thank you, Heidi. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Very kind of her, Heidi
Yes.
Miller. I would say that it was an interesting article, and it was telling to me what you just read. She was a beauty queen at age 17, and she's always kind of, I think, enjoyed the spotlight. I thought that was just kind of an interesting way to begin that story. And I thought it was a really good profile that, so many people said a lot of nice things, tried to give a different perspective of Becky. And again, our project, trialwatchers.com. I appreciate you allowing me to just go onto the website. There's plenty of information. If I could ask Jack a question, actually, that was asked of me, and I didn't know yesterday. Some people came up to me and said Becky may have perjured herself. Now, who knows who was telling the truth or not? But Have you ever been in a case where someone testified and perjured themselves? And I mean, if that's the case, I mean, could she be fined? Could there be some kind of jail time? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you testify under oath, and but in order to go ahead and bring a perjury indictment, and I talked to the state newspaper about it this morning. In order to do a perjury indictment, the state has to prove that you knowingly made a false statement. The statement was truly false and it was material. So it's not easy. I mean, in many trials, somebody's not telling the truth. Many hearings, somebody's not telling the truth, but there's very few perjury prosecutions because it's difficult to go ahead and meet that standard. So, I mean, I hope that she does not. It doesn't get to that point. As far as Becky's concerned, as I said, everything I've ever heard about her, she was very sweet and warm and accommodating. I think she got thrown into the limelight. And, I'm one of these individuals after being so involved in this system for so many years. I just tell people not to throw stones at somebody unless you've been in their place and had to deal with the same things they were dealing with. So, I have no negative feelings about her. Justice Toal made a ruling on the case, and the ruling was not about her, but the ruling was about the burden of persuasion. So there's nothing about that ruling that in any way anybody should take away from that Becky Hill was, tainted from that because that's not what the ruling was. The ruling wasn't based on that. It was based upon the burden of persuasion.
CVS, the longest receipt in all of retailing, just showing some love. Thanks for putting in that work. Gigi, East Texas, loves you. Who does not love Gigi McKelvey? She's the host of the popular true crime podcast, Pretty Lies and Alibis. She spends gavel to gavel covering the Alex Murdaugh trial as well as Lori Valadabel, and she's working on all the Charlie Adelson, Don Adelson stuff with us now. By the way, speaking of that, Gigi, did we ever get a new mugshot of Charlie Adelson in his forever
We sure
home?
did.
We did.
Yes.
Did I miss that?
Yeah. Do you want to see it real quick?
I would love to. And
I can share my screen. He's got a little bit of a hard look now, Joel. I think it's not taking long for him to learn the ways of the pokey.
Well, let's see this. I'm curious. This is Charlie Adelson, who was just convicted November 6th of murdering his ex-brother-in-law.
I can share my screen
in the state of Florida. You can send it to me, and is it tweeted out, Gigi?
I sent it. Oh, yeah, it's on my Twitter.
But do me a favor.
I have it pulled up right here. Hold on.
Text it to me. I've been.
All right, I'm gonna text you.
I don't know if you've heard. I have COVID. Have I mentioned that? So I haven't been on my A game.
That's all right. Yeah, Charlie got that hard look now. And
Gigi, if you pull it up, I can put it on the screen. If you share your screen.
Oh yeah. Let me share my screen real quick. Let me make sure I share the right tab. Otherwise, you're gonna see I've been looking for telescopes online.
Black Widow telescope.
There you go. I shared it.
Oh, that is a tough look right there.
He's practicing his poker face for the big house.
That is Charlie Adelson. Jack Swirling. I cannot imagine a worse fate in life than being remanded to state prison in any state, but particularly in Florida or South Carolina, but particularly Florida, for the rest of my natural life without the possibility of parole. Jack, can you think of a worse fate than that off the top of your head?
No, I mean, I've thought about that. In fact, I think about that often when I'm representing people that, this person could spend the rest of their life in prison. And it does weigh on a defense lawyer. I mean, we are, we're not robots. And we do have personal feelings. And these are the kind of things that I think about at night when, I put my head down, that I've got to do the best I can for these individuals because of that fate. So I still have that in my mind, even after all these years.
Me and Joel need to find a jail or prison that's willing to let us come in for a few days, live the life of inmates, and then we get back together and do a podcast about our experiences. I'm telling you, I know your fear, because it's my fear too, Joel, but like we could go in there totally for like 5 days and then come back and do a podcast episode of what it's like.
The level of anxiety I just felt when you said 5 days, I
knew
could
you
do
would.
I'll do I don't think I could even do a night, but at least not in my COVID state of mind, but I could do 5 hours. But I would like to go up to Charlie's prison with you, Gigi, and see what we can, what kind of tour we can get, you and I in there. And we should do
Oh,
that.
let's do it. I'm game. I'm about to send him Ruth Markel's book. I'll post a receipt when I do that, y'all.
By the way, Steve Cohen, I don't think he's going to be too happy to see us if that's done, but that's okay. And I know we're getting off topic here, and Jack's like, what is going on? But
I'm the only one that doesn't have a podcast. I don't understand.
Well, you
Space
need
Coast
one
says-
because you have a voice for it.
Space Coast is 1000% right. I'd be Space Coast, you have to come with me, actually. You're actually the one guy I might trust alongside me. Just bring a shank or something. But Gigi, I'm serious. And Steve Cohen wants in on this. I can't think of a better wingman than Steve. That was a joke. Steve Cohen, I love you, but you would not be the greatest wingman in the state prison. No offense. No offense to you. Space Coast, I would take. In a weird way, I feel like Space Coast would be able to survive in state prison. But Gigi, COVID brain is hitting me hard right now, but we're going to talk about, I'm going to text you after the show. We should do something. He's in the Wakulla State Correctional Facility. The irony of this, Jack Swirling, is that his own mother, Dawn Adelson, who's now awaiting trial, she did not want her daughter Wendy's children to be in Tallahassee, so they had a hit put out on the ex-brother-in-law, ex-son-in-law, and now Donna Adelson, the Jewish matriarch of the family, is awaiting murder trial right now. And Charlie Adelson, who you're looking at, he was a periodontist. He's no doctor, Jack Swirling, but he was a periodontist. He was almost there. But now I can't imagine his Jewish mother is too pleased. But she's about to go to state prison as well, I think. So that is a
and Dan Markel, do you know he was like a huge legal scholar, FSU law professor, just an amazing brain, just.
Yeah, Jack, I don't know if you know the story. I'll send you some articles on it if you don't know the story. But Jack does know all the stories in South Carolina. He's been an attorney there since 1973, a super lawyer. He started the firm, and he was, and I will say this to Dick Harpootlian, and I'll have my mother say it to him because I'm afraid of him, that Jack Swirling is the brains of the operation. I guarantee it 1,000%. Jack Swirling, did Supreme Court Justice retired Toal, did she make the right ruling yesterday?
When the juror did not stand up and say that Becky persuaded her to vote guilty, I think that was the right ruling because there was no evidence that there was any prejudice or any of the. Let's put it this way. Let me back up. There was no evidence in the record that was clear and convincing or beyond a reasonable doubt or by a preponderance of the evidence that any juror was persuaded by her or anything that she allegedly said. So I think it was the right ruling under the circumstances.
I was muted that whole time.
Okay.
The whole time.
Yeah, what I was going to say is my good friend, Dr. J.P. Garrison, he kindly offered to come on tomorrow night. He is one of the best at reading body language and behavior. We've been covering the Michelle Troconis trial out of Stamford, Connecticut, accused of conspiring to kill a woman named Jennifer Farber-Dulos with a guy named Fotis Dulos who unalived himself, as they say, while he was awaiting trial. Anyway, Michelle Troconis is all over a bunch of police interviews as well as surveillance video hiding evidence, according to the state. And Dr. G is coming on tomorrow to explain. Dr. G explains. He's going to explain her behavior tomorrow night at 7:00. So like G, it must be something with the G's. Dr. G, Gigi McKelvey, Neil G. Gordon. What's going on there, Neil Gordon? What are we
I
looking
want
at?
to see if you could see this. My beautiful and intelligent wife just got this screenshot. Dick was making a really important point. And let's see, can you see the gallery at all?
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little wide.
Is it a little bit? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're in the gallery and oh, there it is. There's the two of us.
Oh, there you go. There you
see,
go.
we have this look on our incredulous look.
Yes.
Dick must have done something to upset the justice there. I don't know. So.
Well, there you go. It's always there's always something happening in the great state of South Carolina, the Palmetto State. Jack Swirling, when Dick tries to go at it with Eric Bland. Eric Bland's a weightlifter. Just make sure you stand in front. I know you're a big guy. You're like 6'5", Jack. Don't let him get at it.
I would have to definitely get in between.
Pick him up and spin him around, you know.
Yeah.
I'd have to get in between.
All right, before this completely devolves, I just want to thank everyone once again. An amazing show tonight. Special shout out to Neil Gordon. Neil, courageous of you to come on because some of the questions weren't the most pleasant. Jack Swirling, you're a legend in your own right in South Carolina, not just Judge Toal. And Gigi, you're a much younger legend in the Palmetto State, but one day you will be of the same stature as Toal, and it'll be Toal, Swirling, McKelvey on the South Carolina Mount Rushmore.
I'll be 47 this year, so I'm inching my way.
All right. Love you guys. Love you, America.
Love y'all.
Love you, South Carolina. Love you, Augusta, Georgia.
It's at Pretty Lies Alibi, Twitter.
At Pretty Lies Alibi. Support Gigi. Gigi, I'm going to hit you up later about trying to figure out something with prison.
I'm down.
Till then, take care, everyone. Jack, I'm going to send you a link to my book. I think you're going to love it.
Appreciate that very
Nice
much.
to meet you, Mr. Jack.
Same here. Nice meeting you all. And
good seeing you again, Neil.
Thank you.
All
You
right.
too, Gigi. Thank you, Jack. It was very enlightening.
Same
Thank
here.
you.
I enjoyed it very much.
Thanks to all, but a special honor to have Mr. Swirling.
Feel better, bud. Feel better.